There are lots of materials for making arrows. 3 arrows here you can see. One is made of cane, one is made of wood, and one is made of aluminium. It really doesn't matter what you choose, but if you're doing archery on horseback, then you probably want a good strong aluminium arrow. In Western archery, we're often very concerned about how stiff the arrow is, its spine. But in traditional archery, particularly in Chinese archery, people weren't so worried about spine. They were really worried about how heavy the arrow was rather than how stiff it was. When you choose an arrow, you need to choose an arrow that's not too long and not too short. An arrow is long enough when it accommodates your full draw like this comfortably, and the tip of the arrow rests on your finger. If it's coming too far back and to your wrist, then it's too short. If there's a long amount of arrow sticking over the edge when you're at full draw, that means that the arrow is too long. So the ideal is to full draw and with the tip over your finger. Let's have a look at the parts of the arrow. This is the nock. This is a nice sort of nock to use because it's very clear when you're doing horseback archery or archery on foot how the arrow is oriented, and it has a nice clear grip on the string. Here's the fletching. The fletching needs to be quite long, not too high and not too low. Ideally, the height should be about the same as the diameter of the shaft. If it's too high, it'll slow the arrow down in flight, but if it's too low, it won't stabilize the arrow well when you're shooting. Here's the shaft of the arrow, and this is the point. There are all sorts of different points used for different sports and games. This is a fairly standard field or target point. Just as with the bow, it's absolutely vital that we keep the arrows safe. Every time you've shot a round of arrows, even if only once, you need to look at them very carefully to make sure that they're safe. A common problem is that the nock has broken off. When that's happened, of course, the arrow can't be shot anymore, so this one can't be used any further. Other problems are more subtle and you have to be careful. This arrow looks all right at first, but if we look carefully, we can see that the fletching has risen up off the shaft because the glue has come loose. This needs to be glued back, and we can't shoot with it. Another common problem, and very uncomfortable for us if we're shooting over a bare hand, is that one of the fletches has risen up. If we're shooting over a bare hand, this can cause a very nasty injury. Finally, of course, we have to make sure that all the points are intact. If the point has gone, then there's no point in shooting with the arrow. With screw-in points or glued points, it's very easy for the point to come out and be left in the target. You need to check every time that your points are there. Lots of people know how to be safe when they're shooting at the target, but actually most accidents happen at the face of the target when the shooting has stopped. The problem is that lots of people come to the target to collect their arrows. One person has to pull hard to pull the arrow out and can easily hit the person who's waiting next in the line. So the important thing is to make sure that each person collects their arrows safely with the other people standing at a safe distance, like that. Then the next person in turn can collect their arrows. Whether you're shooting on foot or shooting on horseback, it's a very good habit to be able to get the arrow onto the bow without looking at it. When you're shooting on foot, it means that you can keep your whole concentration on the target. And of course, when you're up on horseback, there's no chance at all that you'll be able to look at what you're doing with your hands when you're galloping towards a target. The first action is to bring the arrow down and catch the shaft with your 3 fingers at the grip like this. The second action is to draw your hand gently along the shaft so that you have 2 fingers at the arrow nock here and your thumb on this side of the nock. In the third action, you draw the shaft gently along the string, allowing your thumb to pass over the string, and these 2 fingers of the grip should be slightly forward so that finally you could use them to push the nock hard onto the string. At the same time, you should move your thumb and forefinger to the correct position for shooting like this. It's really important to get this action firmly down. You want to keep practicing like I'm doing, maybe for a couple of hours while you're watching a football game on the television, so that you can do it absolutely without needing to concentrate at all. Don't try and do it fast at first. Do it as if you're practicing a piece of music. Just get it down exactly correct first, and then you can speed it up later. So keep practicing while walking around in a small circle. Again, try not to concentrate so much on the actions that you're doing. Try and think of something else and keep the actions as natural and smooth as possible. Finally, to get the feeling of what it's like trying to do it on horseback, you can try moving up and down gently on one leg. Try and get a rhythm going so that when you knock the arrow, you're not going against the rhythm of this movement, but actually using the rhythm to help you when you're knocking the arrow. When you're practicing this action, actually imagine that you've got a horse's head in front of you. So try and avoid hitting the horse when you're putting your arrow onto the bow. Keep your arrow and your bow clear of anything that's in front of you, because horses, from my experience, don't like being hit around the ears with an arrow when you're doing horseback archery. 1, 2, 3, 4.